The Dukes of Dice are brought to you by Game Toppers, intimidating lawyers with their arms crossed, and listeners like you.
Welcome to the Duchy. It's time for another episode of the Dukes of Dice podcast, a proud member of the Dice Tower Network.
Coming to you from the Duchy of the Duke City, Albuquerque, New Mexico, and the Gateway City, St. Louis, Missouri, it's The Dukes of Dice, a podcast about board, card, and probably not role-playing games. Today, the Dukes review Warhammer 40k kill team Octarius. Then they take a look back at their review of Fort in their Dukes Double Take. And now, The Dukes of Dice.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. This is Sean.
And Alex.
And this is episode 261, which we're calling War and Pizza. Again, that's War and Pizza. That name suggestion thanks to Nick Hayes. Of course, we're talking about Warhammer 40,000 kill team. There's the war component, and then pizza is a major component in the Fort game. So nice little play on War and Peace, which was just whoosh right over Alex's head at first, right?
Oh yeah. I liked both of Nick's names, but I liked the other one he came up with better initially. And then when you said out loud War and Pizza, I got it. But I had to hear it out loud first.
Yeah, so Nick, excellent job naming that episode, or naming this episode, I should say. In fact, we get help naming all of our episodes from our Board Game Geek Guild, which is Guild 2008. You should definitely go check that out because a couple days before we record, we'll post up, or Alex will post up, the Dukes on Deck, where we talk about the games that we're going to be speaking of in the podcast, and you can help us name the episode. So check that out, and we'll give you our runners-up at the end of the episode. Alex, I have got to tell you, this late recording, we're recording on a Friday. It is 8:52 my time. It is 9:52 your time. And although we're recording late, this late recording is a welcome distraction because I have the new Dune movie available on HBO Max that I do not want to watch on our TV because we have our game group. We've got our private screening tomorrow in the theater, 11:45. And it would be an awful thing for me to watch Dune right now. And it's very hard. It's hard been knowing it's available for me to watch as early as last night. And in fact, Ellie and I were talking about it. Matthew and I were talking about it. Matthew and I feel like we're masters of our domain, lords of the manor. I don't know if you know those references.
I do know the reference, 100%. Nice Seinfeld reference for folks who didn't pick up on it.
Yeah, for not watching Dune, even though it's right there, ready to go. Ooh, it's rough, and I'm excited. I'm excited. Are you planning on seeing it?
I am planning on seeing it. I don't know if it necessarily needs to be in a theater, unless I hear after this private screening from you that it has to be. But as we can talk about this now, timing would indicate I don't know if getting to a theater is going to make a ton of sense. We are, as of the time of this recording, exactly 1 week from Abby's due date. No signs that baby girl is imminently making her appearance, but I mean, we're in the any day now kind of time frame. So I don't know if in theater will make sense. So it's probably more likely we'll watch it on HBO Max.
Yeah. And I think that's probably fine. I mean, it's what it is. But yeah, I did not think we were going to record this week. I suspected there was going to be an early arrival. So I'm a little surprised we're actually doing it this week.
Did you have a backup plan?
I did not. No, we were going to delay a week, and then I probably would have reached out to Aaron. Aaron from Boards Alive is going to be in the next episode, and he probably would have been more than helpful and and flexible. We would have figured something out. But yeah, no, I had no immediate contingency. So yeah, I'm glad that worked out. Abby, way to keep that baby inside you.
That's right. Well, look, she has two things on her agenda that has she's been happy baby has stayed in for now. One of them was my folks are back in town, and my dad, it's been a long time since he's done one of these, but he is a huge fan of cheese, and He put on an epic, and I mean epic, 15 cheese dinner that we enjoyed. And enjoyed we did. I'm in a bit of a food coma recording this now. But Abby was especially excited for this. We had just too many to count. Amazing cheeses.
15. You did count. It was 15.
Oh, yeah, sorry. 15. Yes. But too many of them to count were amazing. So is that more than 15? Who's to say? In any case, that all went really well. But also tomorrow afternoon, Abby and I initially got J&J for our vaccine doses. So we are now eligible for a Moderna booster, and we're getting those tomorrow afternoon as of the time of this recording. So getting maybe a little bit of extra antibodies before she makes her appearance is the idea. So anyway.
Yeah, I got my booster, my third shot a week ago Monday, and it knocked me out. It was brutal. So have a plan in place.
Yeah.
For work and whatnot.
Well, fair. It's, hopefully by Monday we'll be okay, but you never know. So those are things that are going on. I will say, Sean, the thing I've been obsessed with was I was doing research for my job on law firms to reach out to as part of a campaign we're up to. And for whatever reason, I just was like, I wonder what Sean's website looks like. And I cannot get over, listeners, go to FrazierRamirezLaw.com. And boy, oh boy, Sean is serious. Sean means absolute business. Arms crossed, serious look, hair on point. He will win that case, man. He is going to win that case. But your partner right in front of you, she's smiling. So I don't know why you couldn't be smiling too.
No. We talked about it. We wanted me a little bit grumpier, a little more intimidating looking, but we wanted kind of a softer edge for her. So this was absolutely thought of and discussed.
Okay.
And planned. We planned this.
Is there an alternate version where you're happy?
Oh yeah, we had professional pictures done, and we've got like 50 of them. So yeah, we got ones where we're both smiling. We got ones where I'm smiling, she's not, and ultimately we decided no, we want this one because it's a little balance there, right? You don't necessarily want a lawyer that's a pushover, but you also want a little warmness, right? So a little both.
Okay. All right. Well, anyway, that picture, I don't know, stuck out in my mind.
Hey, I have no problems getting clients to hire me. So
okay.
Don't you worry, Alex.
No, look, I was not worried about your practice. Don't you worry, Sean. I'm glad the crossed arms grumpy Sean is an effective Sean in this case.
It's not grumpy, it's stern and intimidating.
Yeah. I mean, I felt intimidated. I was not willing to take you on legally after seeing that picture.
No.
Yeah.
No, you wouldn't want to.
Well, hey, Sean, this podcast is not about photos on your professional website, but it is about board games. And we both have some new plays of late. What's one that you've been playing?
Yeah, so the other week it was our buddy, listener also, Chris Holm, his birthday. So he wanted to schedule a couple tables of Twilight Imperium 4 over at Empire I think that was a Sunday morning is what it wound up being. And we were going to do 2 groups of 4. When we got there, Rory was like, I can't do TI4 today. I'm just not feeling it. He made some mistakes the night before, which I won't get into. And so Chris and 3 others, they got to play their game of TI4. We got set up on another table, and we played Excavation Earth. Have you heard of this game, Alex?
Not at all. No, definitely not.
Oh. Yeah, so Excavation Earth is pretty interesting. You are aliens, different alien races that are basically in the far future. Humanity, I guess, has died off. That's bleak. But you are excavating the Earth. You are finding ancient by their standards, not by our standards, I guess modern Earth antiquities, selling them on the market, selling them on the black market. Pretty interesting. So this is designed by Gordon Calleja, David Turksey, Y. Yi, with art by Philip Cruz. And I'm trying to see who published this. Madigo. Madigo is the publisher. There's a couple other listed there. So this is a game where you are basically collecting these things from Earth, and then you are fulfilling orders essentially. So the main board is a map of Earth divided into the different continents, and there are these different regions where certain colors of artifacts will pop up, and there are these little tokens that you'll pull blindly, place them on corresponding spots. You have these little archaeologist guys, your little workers that will move around the board. They'll be able to go dig up stuff. the main mechanic here is it is an action selection, but deck management game because you're playing a card from your hand for your action, and that card sometimes will need to have a matching symbol for the region or matching color. Sometimes it doesn't matter, but you're definitely having to play the right card at the right time and save other cards for later. And so you're going around picking these up. Then you're going to the matching markets at the top as an action, where you are, I guess, staking a claim to sell these things in the market. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to sell the same color artifacts in one go. You can't mix colors of artifacts in your sales. The same colors of artifacts, and you want to sell them at multiple markets. There's this demand system that establishes how much certain colors are worth, and you have this ability to kind of finesse that and cycle that through one of the actions. But if you're able to sell one good at one market, great. You're going to get some money, which is points. You might get some other bonuses, but then it's when you can sell the same goods at 2 markets or 3 markets that you're going to get some really good bonuses. And really, that's what the game was about. The game was about getting the stuff, setting things up in an advantageous way, and then selling them all off hopefully in at least 2. If you're selling one thing at a time, it's bad news. So there's obviously a lot of other things. Like there are these this command area where as you sell goods, it's going to give you some sort of area majority on these other areas, which on one hand can be spent to give you some sort of unique power. On the other hand, they get scored at the end of each of the 3 rounds for first place, and then in subsequent rounds, second place and third place. There was a lot going on here. This reminded me a little bit of Nippon. Did you ever play Nippon? Did we review Nippon?
Yeah, no, we did. We reviewed it.
Okay. Yeah, I love Nippon. I think I gave it a 5 at the time. It's probably closer to a 6. It kind of has a similar layout. There's a map of Japan and all these different regions. There's a bit of an area control or area majority element to it. There's also different colors of meeples at the top of the board, which affects your action selection. Different overarching mechanic, but it felt similar to me. For whatever reason, Alex, this was my first play of it, but for whatever reason, this game and I clicked.
Okay.
I was killing it. Let me see if I could find where is my score here. So I scored 323 points. The next place was Trevor with 282, and after that was Rory with 211.
Man,
I killed it. It for whatever reason, it's like, okay, I got to jump through these hoops. So set up these hoops. Timing's really important because, like I said before, you can kind of finagle the markets to increase the demand for particular goods. And if you're a little bit behind, like if you have to watch what other players are doing, because if you're trying to sell purple goods and someone else is trying to sell purple goods, and if they beat you to placing out a marker on a particular market where purple goods are in high demand, that cycles out all of the purple good demand. So you have to be very careful. And for whatever reason, my timing was good. It just clicked. It was one of those games that just clicked for me. That being said, I think it's a fine game. I'm not super crazy about it. I'm glad I played it. I'll happily play it again. It would probably settle in like a high 4, I suspect. But it did make me want to go back and play Nippon. I think Nippon is the better game, and there's a little bit more going on. I think you'd like this game well enough, and I think it is, in one sense, it's a pretty dry game. Like, it could be any type of theme, but I think you would have fun kind of role-playing as an alien excavator.
Yeah, hey, look, the look of it looks super cool.
Yeah, it's a good production. It's a really solid production. I think it's a good game. I think it's worth checking out. It didn't, like I said, it didn't blow me away, even though it clicked for me really well. But yeah, I think it's worth checking out. So that is Excavation Earth.
Okay. Well, Sean, I'll talk to you about an unexpected gem. Abby and I, about a month ago now, we're wandering around Miniature Market. This was when we were looking for miniatures that she could paint. Thank you, by the way, Guild, for suggestions. We have a copy of My Little Scythe that's en route that will be lovely to paint while Baby has some downtime. But while we were walking around, we were scooping up a bunch of other little, $10, $15, $20 games. We got the game I'll talk about after this one on Ding and Dent. We got a new Exit game. We just got a bunch of small stuff. And one of the ones that I saw, and it caught my eye, is like, okay, it's a 2-player game, 15 minutes. And I showed Abby the box for this game called A Little Wordy, and she said, Exploding Kittens? Oh, I don't know. Which I could not have been more proud, because she showed a level of board gaming acumen and snobbery in that moment to identify that hey, Exploding Kittens, I don't know. But we scooped it up anyway, because it's a word game and 2 players, and hey, $10-15, what's the worst that's going to happen out of that? And I got to tell you, Sean, it's a pretty good game. It's a pretty dang good game. 2-player filler game, especially if you're looking for something like that. How it works is you will draw 4 vowels and 7 consonants, and you have to make a secret word with those tiles, ranging from as short as 1 letter all the way up to 11 letters. You'll write that secret word down, and then you'll pass your tiles that you used to your opponent, because they have to unscramble and decipher and figure out what you did as far as a word goes. So how the game works itself is your objective is to have 2 things be true at the same time. I've guessed your word, and I have more berry tokens than you do. The berry tokens come in with how the game typically plays, which is there are 8 clue cards in the middle, and each of those clues has a range of berries that your opponent gets if you use that clue on them. So as an example, Sean, if I were to say one of them is relative word length, I come up with a word, you tell me whether the secret word is shorter, longer, or the same length compared to that word. And for that, I have to, I don't pay you because it doesn't come from me, it comes from the bank, but you receive 1 berry. On the flip side, there are some wilder ones, but they're really expensive. So one of them is, for 5 berries, I have to come up with a word that rhymes with my secret word. So the idea being that, yes, you might use some really powerful clues, but if you can cleverly scrap together some easier ones, you can put yourself in a position to guess the opponent's word sooner. Game comes with a variety of clue cards. You don't play with all of them in any given round. But this is a great one for playing, say, 2 or 3 quick little games of this. It's clever, it's snappy, it's a really fun and interesting strategic word game. Played this one with my mom as well after she arrived to town. I give this one decent praise. This is really, really good as a word game. Designed by Matt Inman, The Oatmeal, from The Oatmeal, and published by Exploding Kittens. But no, Sean, I give this one decent praise. This is not, going to be the crunchy one that you're going to, take up an entire night with. This is a quick hitter, but it's a satisfying one and the perfect filler in a lot of ways.
Cool. All right. Well, that's A Little Wordy. And speaking of a quick filler that's satisfying in a lot of ways, at least I hope so. I hope you're going to say the same. We both we both played Furnace, not together,
nope,
but separately, thousands of miles apart. Or
you calling that a filler? That's a filler for you?
Furnace?
That's not a filler.
It's 30 minutes.
Yeah, like filler to me is more like 5 to 20.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so if we're talking 20 and 30 is not that far off. Number one, like we played 2 games of this in under an hour.
The publisher lists it as 30 to 60 minutes.
Okay. Well, I guess it depends then. I guess it depends on whether or not you played with the expert variant that actually speeds up the game or not.
I don't know if we played with a variant or not. I don't know if we did.
Okay. So, all right. So let me talk about Furnace. Let's see. Pulling it up here on BGG. Furnace is designed by Sergey Dulin, Marta Ivanova.
Nope, those are artists. Those are artists.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ivan Lashin. Ivan Lashin is the designer. Sergey Dulin, Marta Ivanova, Ilya Konovalov. Oh boy. Oleg Yurkov. Oh boy, there's a bunch of them. There's 2 more.
Yeah.
Vadmim Polyborayev and Igor Zarkov. Oof. I'm so sorry, people. Yeah, so Furnace is this little auction and engine builder game where you are, what is this, like 19th century industrialist of some sort,
Yes. Yep.
and so there's, I think it's, is it 5 rounds, 6 rounds, 5 or 6 rounds, and at the start of each round you are bidding on these different industries or buildings, and there's I think it's number of players plus one, I don't quite remember, that get placed out, and then you have uh you have bidding tokens that are numbered 1 through 4, which is the value of the bid. They're different sizes to kind of show, I guess, the different numbers, um, as well as just having them printed on them. And in turn order, you're going to place any one of your discs onto one of the buildings that you want to bid on. And the main rule is you cannot place the same number that someone else has already placed, and you cannot place a bid token on a card that you've already placed a bid token on. There are some asymmetric player powers that break that, but that's the general rule. And the nice thing is that if you lose a bid, uh, you obviously don't get the building, but each building has some sort of lose benefit that might give you resources. So there's oil, there's coal, and there's ore. Are the 3 main resources. So you may actually try and intentionally lose an auction. You don't actually want the building. You just need those resources immediately. Then once everyone's done that, you resolve all of the buildings. People get them, and then it goes into their tableau. And then the buildings have some sort of benefit they provide you. They might give you resources on your turn. They may also say, okay, if you input 3 ore, you'll output an oil. Eventually, you're trying to get things to output money, because that's how you're going to win the game. Most money is going to win the game. There's also these upgrade tokens. Your starter building produces an upgrade token every turn. Generally, an upgrade token plus something else will let you upgrade your buildings. That flips them over to a more powerful side. So there are some cards that actually have an upgrade token as an input to get something else out. But that's what you're doing. Now, in the expert variant, I think it was Sylvain Lacroix that told me that I should only play the expert variant. Basically, once you get your new buildings, they go in a line, and that's the order of production.
Oh,
You don't get to pick and choose the order of production.
Oh,
Which I think is, in some ways, it's a little bit harder, but it makes it a faster game too. Because I'm sure that if you didn't do that, I can imagine there being like a ton of moments of AP and trying to find the best order to do these things in.
I will say, Sean, we did not play with this expert variant.
Mm-hmm.
I could imagine it, one, having lower scores, but
Probably.
two, I could envision it streamlining the process of that. I will say it was not too bad. It really wasn't that bad when we played without that variant. But I could see that restriction being quite nice. Interesting.
Yes. So this was so we played, like I said, back to back. This was Rory and Trevor's, I don't know, third, fourth play of it before they had played with the non-variant, and they both agreed that the variant was better. They liked the variant a lot better. Obviously, there's a little less choice that you have there, because you get to control. You get so like if I get 2 new buildings, I choose which order to put them in. I don't just like get them and put them in as soon as I acquire them from the auction row. I do have some choice there, but once it's set up, that's it. So, what did you think? What did you think of the game?
I liked it quite a bit. I wasn't very good at it. I played this as a 3-player game with my buddy Josh and Patrick, and finished third. It wasn't a blowout, but it was like 72, 68, 64 to give you a ballpark sense of scores. I don't know how different that was from the game you played. It's elegant, well designed, a decent amount of fun. I like the variable player powers. That added some spice to it. We had some slight rules confusion with one of the player powers on exactly how the ability worked in a couple of situations. But we made our way through it, and it worked intuitively when we uncovered and untangled that. Enjoyable game, a beautiful production, nice. Again, not filler length, but it's not full game length either. I'd say short game. So Yeah, no, we enjoyed it, and I'm excited to show Abby this one because I think this will be. She liked It's a Wonderful World quite a bit, and this has enough of those kinds of vibes that I think she's going to dig this game as well.
So yeah, I'm looking at my scores that I recorded here. First game I got 47.
Yep. Okay.
I made some mistakes. Second game I got 72. I won that second game with 72. Let's see, I'm just looking at my app here. The three personal bests were 72, 66, and 61. So even with the variant, it didn't affect the score too much.
In that first game, it certainly did. If you did 47.
Well, but I made some mistakes. I
made some mistakes too, man.
All right. Well, that's fine. Maybe I was playing with more cutthroat players.
It could be. Yeah. Well, good deal. Yeah, no, I enjoyed this one, and it's gotten a lot of buzz. It feels like, and I think it's the buzz is valid. The buzz is it's worthy of the buzz.
Yeah, no, I think it's pretty solid. I liked it a lot. It's not something, so I don't think it'd be good at 2 because of the auction component. Usually you want at least 3.
Yeah.
And otherwise, I wouldn't mind having it here at the house, but for a 2-player game, I think Raquel would like it well enough. I don't think Mariah would be super thrilled about it. So not going to pick it up, but glad it's on the shelf over at Empire, and happy to play more. I play, especially if we need a filler game, Alex.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I'd call it that, but, other than that, very cool. Well, hey, it's, we're done with games we played. We're about to head on over to something Sean has been waiting on, I think, with bated breath for weeks. You told me, Sean, not to talk about this before. So after the break, something Sean is very curious about, excited about, and hopefully you all are too, our review of Warhammer 40K Kill Team Octarius. Well, Sean, the Game Toppers 3.0 Kickstarter is in the books, and thanks to a whole bunch of backers, Game Toppers had a heck of a Kickstarter campaign, more than $800,000 raised to get more Game Toppers, new features, all sorts of fun stuff headed folks' way.
Wait, did you say 800,000?
I did say that amount. Yes.
Oh my goodness. That's a ton of money.
Sean, did you make it in time? Are you part of that group?
It's over. It's over? Like over?
No, it's done. I'm sorry you missed your window. But the good news, Sean, is that if you keep an eye on the Game Toppers LLC website, the late pledge manager should be open in the near future. Take a look there, and you can still get in on all the fun, get the newest features, get yourself a Watson, or get yourself, I don't know, whatever you want. Awesome game mats, rails, something cool to really take your gaming experience to the next level without getting a fully dedicated gaming table, which is exactly what Game Toppers is all about. Check them out, GameToppersLLC.com, because if it ain't a showstopper, it ain't a Game Topper. It came in a mystery box, mostly assembled with detailed instructions and a pathway laid out clearly for a new person to join the hobby. But is Warhammer 40K Kill Team Octarius that bridge to the hobby? And what about if you're an experienced player? Is this something you're going to want to bring to the table? We'll tell you.
All right, so I think this is going to be a little bit different in terms of the rules overview, because I don't want to get too granular here. I just want to give enough for everybody to kind of understand. So let me point out first, Alex, the game itself is Warhammer 40,000 Kill Team 2nd edition. What we have, what you got and I got, is the Octarius box set, which is technically an expansion for the game. Technically, the game itself is really the rule book, which did come in the Octarius set. The set also comes with the Octarius expansion book that has 2 special armies: the Death Corps of Krieg, who are these human Imperial Guardsmen, also known as the Astra Militarum, and then these Orc Commandos, Space Orc Commandos. And so that's one entry point to play this new Kill Team game. The other way you could play is you could just say, I'm just going to pick up the rule book. I'm going to use my pre-existing models for other armies that I have, and then I'm going to pick up the Kill Team Compendium. You probably know nothing about the Compendium, correct?
No idea.
Okay. So the compendium gives a bunch of army lists that are a little bit more generic right now for the different races. And I've taken a look at the compendium, and I'm already planning on putting together some other kill teams. Now the difference is most of those other kill teams lack a lot of individuality. So like in this, we don't just have like 10 normal guardsmen. There's a sniper, and there's a medic, and there's a gunner, and there's a spotter, and they have all these unique special rules. With the compendium teams, a lot of that individuality is gone because this is just the start. This is a system, Alex, and they're going to build on this. They've already announced. I think the next expansion set is going to be Sisters of Battle. These nuns with guns. The image in your mind is different than what it actually is. And I forget, I know it's Tau. Tau are these kind of space fish goats, which also sounds weird. I don't know. Did you look through like any of the source stuff, like the background stuff in the book?
Sean, I think we'll get to it in rules maybe as we're going through this. I don't even know how you want to structure this for this game experience thing, whatever. Because for context, the rule book itself, the actual rules for the game start on something like page 60. Yeah. And the first 60 pages are like lore and other parts of the world. And to answer your question, no, I didn't read any of that stuff.
Oh, all right. So you didn't want to immerse yourself in this universe.
Sean.
Yeah.
Sean, I have immersed myself in the hobby, perhaps, through this experience. The universe, questionable. And wait, let me state up front at this point. To quote Tenacious D, at least coming from my perspective, this is not a review. This is just a tribute.
Okay. So let me explain what this is. So this is a tabletop miniatures war game, which I distinguish from like a tabletop war game, like a GMT game, for example, because it's about the miniatures. There's a whole, like you mentioned, a whole hobby built around this of building and painting these things, individualizing them, making them your own. Then you bring it to a table, including the terrain, and then you and your opponent play this game. So there are a couple different types of tabletop miniature war games. There are the larger army size games like Warhammer 40,000, the 9th edition, where I have, squads of dudes. You have, a squad of 10 dudes, and you've got a tank, and you've got an airplane, and all this other stuff, right? This is a skirmish game where there are fewer pieces. The models usually act on an individual basis. They're a team, but they don't move in squads. Usually, like in 40K, you have to keep a squad together. They have to be within a certain range of one another. But these are 10 dudes for the most part. Some of the kill teams are bigger, some are smaller, that have their own little movement. They do their things. And it is an objective-based game. There are multiple scenarios. There's, I think, 12 different scenarios that you could play. There's different ways to play. There's the open play, match play, and narrative play. You could structure a campaign out of this. I've only played the match play games, which is sort of the most balanced approach. That's what I recommend you play. Initially, I think you said, "Oh, I'm going to do the open play."
No, we did. Well, I think matched play, but we'll talk about it.
Yeah. And so before any of this gameplay starts, you've got to build the models. You got to paint the models. Then you have to learn how to build a kill team roster. Then you have to go through the matched play mission sequence, which is like 14 steps, which includes determining the mission, setting up the terrain, setting up the objectives. And there are somewhere between 4 and 6 objectives in each scenario. And most of the scenarios revolve around you having control of more objectives than your opponents. There's also these secondary tactical victory points that you can get for achieving certain conditions on the board. But it's not so much just about killing the other side as it is about fulfilling the mission objectives. Certainly killing dudes on the other side makes it hard for them to complete their mission objectives. But that's what it's about. So the basic structure of the game is there's these 4 turning points, or just turns. I really hate that they're called turning points. And over these 4 turns, you're going to alternate activating a unit. So this is an alternating activation type game, whereas a game like Warhammer 40,000, Alex, if it's my turn, I move all of my dudes, I shoot with all of my dudes, I fight with all of my dudes, and then it's your turn. Here, it's okay, I activate this one guy, he does all of his stuff. Okay, you choose who you're going to activate, they do all of their stuff, and we go back and forth, which is a little bit more interesting and dynamic in certain respects. Everyone has APLs, an action point limit. For the most part, most of them have 2 action points, at least in this starter box. And most of the actions cost one action point. There's really only one that costs 2 at this point, which is the fallback. But you have actions available to you like a normal move, a charge, which is what gets you into combat, fight, which is where you fight in close combat, shoot. You can climb up the terrain. You can do all sorts of things. And so you choose if I'm going to shoot and then move, if I'm going to move and then shoot. And the interesting thing with the shooting, so when you shoot or when you fight, well, when you shoot, you choose what weapon you have. Most of them only have 1 weapon. You then roll a number of attack dice. These are just D6 that are equal to their attack value. Then there is a ballistic skill, BS, which is a number like 4+, 5+. That is what you need for hits. So 4+ is 4, 5, or 6. So you roll those dice, and then you pull out all of the misses. You note any of the 6s. 6s are critical hits, which may have some sort of special rule, or more than likely they'll just do more damage. Your opponent then rolls a number of dice equal to their defense value. Usually defense dice, there's fewer of them. And then they're going to compare that to their save. So like the Orcs and the Imperial Guard both have a defense of 5. So you'll roll the defense dice, pulling out the failures, and then you apply the defense dice, pulling for each success, it negates a regular hit for your opponent. And you need 2 regular hits to negate, 2 regular successes on defense dice to negate a critical hit. So there's a little interesting things that work there. Once any of the remaining hit dice are accounted for, you then see how much damage they do. Different weapons have different damage amounts. So like the Imperial Guardsmen have 7 wounds on average. The Orc Commandos have 10 wounds on average. Once you've taken away all of the wounds, then that figure is killed or incapacitated. Close combat's a little bit similar, except that it's a simultaneous fight. So instead of rolling defense dice, you each choose a close combat weapon you're going to use. You both roll your attack dice, and then it's another kind of alternating thing where you choose for each of your hits to either strike and deal damage or to parry, which would negate one of your opponent's hits. And there's an interesting little play there. Those are the very basic rules. You throw on top of this, there are things, there are these command points that you have that you start the game with 2. You generate a new command point each turn. They can be spent on these strategic ploys at the start of each round, start of each turning point. They could also be spent on tactical ploys that might give you some sort of quick edge or some sort of benefit. And yeah, you're going to do that for 4 turning points, and you add up the victory points at the end. It's a max of 20 victory points, and whoever has the most has won that match play game. So we're going to keep it on that level. Alex, I think we throw out the structure, because this is not a board game, right?
Yes.
This is a hobby. This is part of a kind of a lifestyle game. Games Workshop does produce board games where you pick up the rule book, you put it together, you play the game, you're good. That's not what this was. This had a much higher barrier to entry than I had hoped for you. So Alex, let's hear it.
Okay. Now look, I want to be clear on something. This is a case where I am coming at this from the perspective of I have played Blood Bowl, but Blood Bowl is square-based, right? It feels more like a typical tabletop game in many ways. I had, in my much younger days, played some amount of Mage Knight, but Warhammer itself is not a thing I have a foundation in. And the assumptions that this makes and the lack of ease of getting into this. This is not, I will say this up front, this is not a good entry point for a new player if you don't have an experienced player there kind of holding hands or setting up things or whatever else. Because a lot of the things that you would assume are there as a board game just are not. And I think my expectations were that this was going to be more of a board game. Because that's what you had talked about. Hey, let's play more board game type stuff that's in the Warhammer universe that sort of blends the two. This does not do that. This is far more of a tabletop miniatures game and experience. And what I think is disappointing is that I had come so far, right? I bought in, Sean. You sent me all of this stuff. For folks who didn't listen a few episodes ago, Sean sent me completely built and painted terrain, an entire gorgeously painted orcish army, and one figure assembled and primed, and tutored us, taught Abby and I how to paint these guys. And we assembled them, and we painted them, and we were bought in, and we got them all done. We got them primed, and we were really proud of them until we then went and looked back at your army, Sean, and we're like, okay, we got some work to do. We're not quite on that level just yet. But hey, we took a lot of pride, and I got the piece of that pride of ownership of making an army yours and some of those things. And so some of that, if that's the intended effect of, hey, I'm getting you more open to miniatures, mission accomplished. But this is not the game that got me into the lifestyle hobby, at least as is. Because when the script flipped from, okay, you're doing the stuff to prepare this game, to, hey, you got to learn this game and try and teach it to Abby and play it with Abby in some sort of a form or fashion, the game became as unfriendly gets.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I get that this probably isn't that hard for tabletop folks. For me, there are a lot of assumptions this system makes. So I think that's a good place to start, Sean. You had directed me to a rules video, and it was a comprehensive rules video. It was about an hour plus of rules, after which, if I had to answer the question, how do you set up and play something like this for your first game, I would not have had a clean answer to you about. And then I'll piece through the rule book, and it'll mention, hey, for your first scenario, maybe do this. And it shows a map of the kill zone, and the map is empty. And it's like, yeah, just set up a kill zone. Okay, what? I don't know what that should look like. Well, there's a page in the rulebook that sort of addresses it that says, hey, here's a good kill zone, here's a bad kill zone. I don't know, your results may vary, but build a kill zone kind of like this, and good luck. So, and then, okay, well, what army do I use, and how do I manage that? I don't know, you figure it out. Here's an army list with abilities. You can flip back and forth and figure that out. Okay, well, good luck. I don't know. It was a tough go, man. It was a real tough go.
Yeah. Yeah. And as I played my first game, having played 20, 30 different tabletop miniature war games in the past, I was like, okay, oh boy, whoops. Whoops. So, and I think for the most part, I agree with you. There is a lot of assumptions, and I struggled when I started playing 9th edition of Warhammer 40,000, because it's kind of similar. Like, okay, well, I see there's this open play, there's this match play, there's a narrative play. It has that as well, and it took me a while to figure out what's common, what do they do at tournaments? What do you do in pickup games? But for me, I then spent, not just for that purpose, but, I spent, I don't know, 40 hours over the course of several weeks watching different YouTube videos, reading about different stuff, really just kind of getting back in and immersing myself in the culture and community of these games. This is not a casual game that you can just drop in and out of, right? And so I think that with one exception, I think that the rules of play well, I think, and again, this is with my background, I think the rules of the game itself are pretty straightforward. There's one glaring exception to me, which is wild. But yeah, it's, you know, which of these three ways should I play? Like, especially for this review, and it doesn't do a great job of explaining that. Once you finally realize, oh, okay, I need to be on the matched play kill team, or the match play sequence, then great. But knowing to get to that point, because it's somewhere in the middle of the rule book, there's nothing that like points you here and says, okay, this is where you start. There's no quick start guide. Like if there was this like 2-page quick start guide, I think that would be fantastic. And I kind of wish I would have looked for something like that online to send to you. That would have been helpful.
Well, and let's add in, Sean, how do I build an army?
Yeah. Well, it's
What?
there. It's there.
I guess it's there, but
It's there.
sure, but it's there, but it also requires an additionally like printed out sheet to track folks and their stats, unless I missed something in the box. I don't know. I found it hard to identify who would have what ability if I had a bunch of unique folks within this army. How would I ID this guy versus this guy, this one versus that one? I'm telling you, it may feel simple to you. From my perspective, I needed my hand held a heck of a lot more by this rulebook and experience.
Well, okay, but in terms of the like having a sheet, like you have a character sheet when you play D&D.
Yes.
Like it's I mean, it's kind of in those. So once the game was set up, were there elements of the rules that were problematic for you?
Quite a few.
Okay.
I mean, to the point of, if I'm going to get any sort of modicum of a play in, we're going to play a streamlined an even more streamlined version of the rules and figure this out, because it sort of gives you a mission you can use, but it's unclear if that's the exact right one. It's unclear which turning point card or which of the objective cards you should use. Having the tactical and strategic ploys up, while a significant part of the game, I mean, questionable. Then you have is your person in engage mode or are they in hide mode? That's a whole other element and layer of complexity to this. Not to mention, and we avoided this, each of the figures could, in theory, have their own special set of rules, abilities, different things. The core of the game, right? Okay, you have 2 or 3 actions. Do this, do that, assign damage. We got that. We went through the ranged combat structure, the close combat structure, just fine. When it came to line of sight and how that was affected and how damage was reduced or not reduced, differences between being in having an engage order and having something else, it was absolutely Calvin Ball.
Okay. Yeah, and I will say the line of sight rules for this game are bonkers.
Yeah.
They make perfect sense to me now. I initially read and reread the line of sight rules 5 or 6 times. They made no sense to me. I watched several videos on it. I think they are actually fantastic for what they accomplish in the game, but they are so opaque and so difficult to understand. Whereas in regular Warhammer, it's a very simple line of sight system. But this is kind of accounting for a more cinematic feel where when someone has an engage order, they're up and running and coming at you. When they have a conceal order, they're scrambling along the ground. And so while they may actually be upright, having the conceal order accounts for them kind of being out of line of sight in certain situations. That was difficult, and that's a very fundamental part of the game. Like, I want to shoot this person. Can I do that? I don't know. And there's this 3-step process, which I now get perfectly, but I struggled with it. My first game was completely wrong. And again, I think it's a good rule not the way it's written, but I think it's a good rule, and it's creating a very dynamic game. But it was rough. It was certainly rough.
Yeah. Well, and the rule, goes through, all right, I'll check and see if this cover line hits with this cover line, and If they are a full square back of this thing of cover, and this person's within a triangle of it, then they're in range. But if they're more than a triangle, then there's cover protection. And we just kind of had it down to, they're a valid target, but it's harder to hit. So make this check more difficult, or roll fewer dice, or I'm telling you, absolute Calvin ball with this. And
okay,
let me be clear, with the version we played with, we had fun. Partly because Abby came up with individual names for the figures. Hey, this is Axel, this is Rose, this is Gun Brother 1, this is Gun Brother 2. I had Barbecue Bob, and like we all had ridiculous names, and we streamlined the abilities so there was basically just the leader and the not leaders. So we streamlined like crazy. We didn't use proper cover rules. We did use mostly proper combat, as far as I can tell, and effective, say, injuries, as far as I can tell. But it was barely kill team, if that makes any sense. It was like a light tabletop experience.
Sure. And I think that's fine for a number of reasons. I'll say my first game, so remember our buddy Jared? He moved to Utah about a year or so back. He was in town, and I said, oh, perfect, I'll get my first play in with him. And because he's a miniatures guy too. And he had not played this before. He also hasn't really played, I think he's played 40K in the past. And I know he just picked up some Age of Sigmar, the starter box, the Dominion starter box. And I said, okay, I just kind of want to get a feel for the rules. We'll play the mission, we'll play the primary objectives, but let's ignore the secondary objectives for now. And I think just us kind of getting a handle on the rules was good. So, I kind of did the same thing for my first game. And then in my second and third games, I had everything in there. I did play one of my games against Sean Connery, which was very good. Played solo.
Sure.
And that was great because that was super fast. I did that in like 45 minutes. It was pretty awesome. And maybe this is a question for the end. So I guess, question for the end is really, okay, so where do you go from here? Like, are you done? Maybe. And I would not say that you did not make a good faith effort. I absolutely would not say that. Be a little sad, but sure. I also get like frustration. And here's the thing, like, are you the type of person? Okay, so you're playing hockey right now, right?
Yeah.
That's a huge investment in terms of time, energy, equipment.
Yep.
Are you like, have you been like researching hockey strategy and like fundamentals, or watch hockey videos to try and improve? Is that something that you've done since you started playing hockey? Sort
of. Like, I've gone to a stick and puck here and there, right? When I got into this, I got into it from a learn to play perspective. So it was training sessions, and then I went to an extended learn to play to get more classroom time, and then I've gone to fill in wherever I can. But in terms of off time, like reading books or watching videos or whatever else, I've watched a couple. Yeah. I've seen a couple, but I wouldn't say it's like you would obsess. You would handle it, approach it just completely differently.
Probably.
Yeah. So you're correct in that it's not necessarily my nature to obsess in that way over something.
Mm-hmm.
But thanks Siri, very helpful. No, so let me answer your question in broad terms. And actually, to throw in something else on this, I think this sort of answers the question to some extent. Abby is no fan of, say, war games as a genre. But we both agreed this is probably the coolest looking thing that's ever been on our table.
Cool.
Oh, immersive, looked gorgeous. This amazing painted battlefield. These figures, it came to life in a really cool, engaging way.
Yeah.
That part of the charm of this I get. The fiddliness with the rules and how do you build an army and how do you get started quickly if you don't know what you're doing and what's the mission and what should the terrain look like and hold my hand through this, man, I could have used a lot more of that as far as the game goes. But in terms of an experience and, oh man, this looked cool on the table, and the process of making something that's your own, that part all resonated. That part resonated beautifully. And I think that will translate to other areas. So, for instance, I don't know if these folks necessarily repurpose well as a Blood Bowl team, but I'd be open to getting a Blood Bowl team and painting and creating one and possibly someday joining a league if I could figure out one in St. Louis. I could see Abby having fun painting My Little Scythe minis. I could see as part of future role-playing campaigns or whatever else, getting into that from a character perspective. There's a new skill set and a new world that's been unlocked from that side of things. Painting feels way more accessible. Assembling feels way more accessible. So if the question is, are you just going to kind of throw it all away and walk away? Not from that part of what you opened up, right? Not from that piece of things. Because, again, I'd like to maybe paint a Blood Bowl team. I'd like something with a little more of that structure that I can connect to. I got Blood Bowl much more easily, partly because there were folks there to teach it, partly because it's connected to a game I find really interesting and love, and partly because it uses a grid system and not frickin' measurements, which I have so far has not clicked with me as a game thing. So I don't know what happens to Warhammer 40K Octarius itself. Abby mentioned next time we're by Miniature Market, we need to buy a storage solution, a little foam case for the guys we painted. Okay. It would be a shame to have it completely go away, but I also don't foresee us playing it, so I genuinely don't know. I don't know where to go from here with it. It feels like I need some sort of a guru or a sage here locally to kind of guide me into this. But I'm not at rage quit point. This particular game didn't resonate. It's just not accessible for me. Sure. But no, not everything gets thrown out. Does that make sense?
It does. And I've got a lot of thoughts here. So let me first off, let me mention the movement. The movement in this game is awful. And let me tell you why. So as you pointed out, there's no grids here. Things have a movement value. It's a certain number of inches. It's technically a certain number of white circles, which is stupid. But for most, it's 6 inches. And you can kind of divide that up. Part of that's climbing, whatever. And so in most miniatures games, you just take a tape measure. You go buy a tape measure at Home Depot or whatever, and you measure it out and you move them. This game is using proprietary gauges. And so a black triangle is 1 inch. A white circle is 2 inches. A blue square is 3 inches, and a red hexagon is 6 inches. And so the gauges are kind of cool, and they're multiple sided. They're 4 sided, whatever. But it creates kind of a barrier between, my guy moves 3 white circles, which is 6 inches. Maybe I just have him move 6 inches and I use a tape measure. I mean, you can do that, but so much of all of the rules, not just with movement, but of like a certain range of extra effects are within a certain number of white circles or whatever. I feel like that created a little bit more of a barrier to entry, and I'm not crazy about that. That's a little frustrating. The second thing, I got 3 things here. The third thing's the longest, so I'll say that for the last. The second thing here is, so obviously it makes sense that because Abby had some amount of buy-in, having helped build and paint these guys, but knowing that this wasn't, like, this is as far from her style of game as can be, do you think it would have been better to play with someone else?
Maybe, but if I can't even figure out for myself from the rules how the heck to play this in a way that makes any degree of sense without going to extra measures, right? You mentioned printing a character sheet in D&D. Yeah, I could have gotten an army thing printed out, but I don't, as a way of just knowing and having the tools available and understanding, I don't have a great way of tracking on an ongoing basis health or differentiating guys in a way. We completely ditched the whole idea. I understood the concept of how they worked, but we completely ditched using command points and any of those kinds of maneuvers. So I don't think it helped that it was Abby, but let's say it was my buddy Patrick who has some miniatures experience, or Josh, or someone else here locally. It's possible, but if I can't, from investing an hour of watching a series of rules and from flipping desperately through a rule book, figure out a way to just get an initial game in.
Yeah.
That's a huge problem, man. And I don't know if swapping Abby for someone else solves that problem.
No, and well, okay, so here's then point 2.5. So would you so I'm part of a local Facebook group for Games Workshop war games. And I'm constantly seeing people posting in there, hey, I've got an army, but I don't know how to play 40K. Hey, I just built a kill team. Someone have time to run me through the ropes. And people are like, yeah, absolutely. Like I played in this league, and then I've gotten pickup games, and it's like, it's a little weird because it's not like going to like a game night where you sit down with a bunch of people, some of them you know, like you're just getting these pickup games off the internet. Is that, and I'm positive there is a St. Louis Facebook group.
Oh, I guarantee.
Yeah.
You don't have miniature market.
Yeah.
You don't have miniature market based here and not have a huge community for this.
So would you be willing to go out of your comfort zone and say, hey, I've got fully painted Octarius set. I can't figure this out. Can we meet up at miniature market and you know, someone teach me?
Would I be willing to do that? Sure. Is that likely to happen anytime soon?
Soon,
No.
sure. Yeah.
I mean, eventually, yeah, maybe. But also, if I know I can paint now, right? Like, so I'll give an example of something. Back when I got into Blood Bowl, I briefly flirted with, hey, I'm going to get my own Blood Bowl team. We're going to play in a Blood Bowl league in Albuquerque or wherever, and this is going to be great. And I got a team of frogmen shipped into me from Italy. And some of them showed up with, like, you know, broken arms and whatever else. I was like, what the heck? This is some nonsense. They're like, hey, it happens. You know, just glue it together or whatever. Sorry.
Yeah.
And to which I said, I don't know how to do that, and I don't have the patience for that. I'm not going to do that. I would not have that same reaction now. Having glued together models, I know it is actually relatively easy, and I have the tools and the knowledge to do that. I am far more interested in, hey, is anyone playing Blood Bowl? Like, I've got a painted up team. I could use someone to guide me more into that game just because I'm more interested in that game in particular.
Yeah.
So that I would be willing to do. I'm not so certain. And who knows? Maybe as we get closer to the double take, that'll be the trigger for me to go out and say, hey, I want to give this game a chance. Can someone kind of run me through how this works? Happy to meet up at Miniature Market. Let's, you know, see what we can do. That's an option, but it's not anytime soon.
Sure.
And the doors you've opened have other priorities for me.
Okay. So let me get to my third point then, because you mentioned you need a guru, or you like, so here's how I got into the hobby. So initially I'm 16 years old. I'm super into Magic. I'm reading Inquest magazine, and one of their reviews was for Warhammer 40,000 Epic, which is a smaller scale. So this is like these little tiny dudes, but you got like a ton of them. And so I went to the store at the mall, Game Days, that I later worked at. It was my first job in high school. And they didn't have Epic, but they had the Warhammer 40,000 second edition box set, and pulled it off the shelf, looked at the back. Oh my God, this looked awesome. You know, look at these miniatures, painted miniatures. Well, I didn't realize they were painted, but look at these miniatures, the terrain. Oh my God, this is awesome. I buy that. It was like $75. I buy that, take it home, and I'm like, oh, I can't play this because I have to build these and I have to paint these. And I'm like, okay. So I think I remember clipping them off with nail clippers, off the sprues with nail clippers, using super glue, putting them together. And I remember playing my first game with Ellie at Ellie's house on his coffee table. And I'm like, this game is stupid. You just move up and you shoot, and it's stupid. And who the hell is going to paint their miniatures? Like, because there's a whole, you know, directions, steps of processes to paint your miniatures. I'm just like, who would do this? This would take way too much time, way too much effort, totally not worth it. And I put it away, and I think I got rid of it. No, yeah, I think I got rid of it at some point. fast forward to me being 19, and I'm in Canada, and I'm at another mall, and there is a Games Workshop store. And I'm seeing in front of me for the first time all of these beautifully painted miniatures. And I'm just like, oh wow, okay, I'll figure this out. I'll figure this out. And I started by picking up Battlefleet Gothic, which is uh, Warhammer 40,000, but it's spaceship combat. And I picked up Lord of the Rings, the Lord of the Rings strategy battle game, which they had just gotten the license to because the first Lord of the Rings had just come out, and they still have that license to this day. And so I remember I had a great time painting up the Battlefleet Gothic ships. I learned from the books and from online how to paint them and dry brushing them. They came out great. They looked fantastic. I was super happy with them. Then I started painting the Lord of the Ring High Elves, and they looked like garbage. I did a terrible job. They looked awful, and I was just like, "Oh my god, this is awful." And then I went and found there was another Games Workshop store in Phoenix, and I was just looking at the models like, how do you get to this level? Like, how do you get here? And the nice thing about the Games Workshop store, which again I eventually worked at later, um, was I came in and I had one of the staff kind of walk me through a sample turn of the game, right? And that was helpful. I came in and I got paint lessons. Now it was, and then I befriended some of the employees there, and I said, "Hey, I want to get my first game in. Can you help walk me through it?" And all of that helped. And then a couple months later, I'm working at the shop and I'm painting better than the manager, which when someone pointed that to him really pissed him off. Um, and a lot of it though, and at that point I got Mitch into it, I got Ellie into it. They had their own Battlefleet Gothic fleets and they had their own 40K armies. Um, and there's always going to be an element of I'm going to put in the work. Like I see that there's something here. I'm going to invest way too much time figuring this stuff out, but I did have help along the way. And I think I kind of helped bring Mitch and Ellie along. Um, and then part of a group of gamers, and we would have painting parties, and we'd say, oh, this guy needs to put together all these things, let's all help him put together this stuff real quick in time for this tournament. I mean there's just this great community that I don't necessarily get to experience as much, and it's interesting that for the most part, at least in Albuquerque here, everything's so close together that these game stores, at least my experience has been so at this point, that they don't have they're not clubhouses because everything's so close together. In Phoenix, everything was so far apart that you identified with one game store. This is my game store. This is my clubhouse. But now with the internet and with these Facebook groups, it's just easy to be like, hey, I'm going to be at Etten Games on this date. I've got 2,000 points of Imperial Guard. Anyone want to get a game in of 40K? Or hey, I've got my Kill Team Octarius all painted up. Anyone want to learn a game of Kill Team and help me work through the rules? So there has to be this desire to get into this game and get into this hobby, and it's a huge commitment. I mean, it's a huge commitment. You get out of it what you put into it in a lot of ways. And obviously, like you said, the timing of this with the baby along the way, it's not a great time. Although I actually got back into painting. I remember I painted all of the Descent minis right around the time Chewie was born, after having taken a couple of years off of painting. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know. And it's encouraging to hear what you're saying about Blood Bowl. Like, if I were you, when the time permits, I would just see, is there a Blood Bowl league running? And you just say, hey, I'm going to join. I'm a fairly new player. And so if people are okay with that, and people will be like, yeah, absolutely. This last league I played in was a bunch of newer players. There are people like me who were just new to the edition, but there were people that were brand new to 40K. And it's yeah, I'm not just going to stomp you. Let's figure this out. Let's teach you this game. So I don't know. I always go back to Motainai, Alex. So many people look at Motainai and be like, it's not worth it. It's too opaque. It's too much of a learning curve. It's not worth it. And then there are some people like you, me, Mike Fitzgerald, that pushed through and realized what a gem there was here. I think Kill Team Second Edition is a gem, and I'd like you to push through, but I'm not gonna force you to do anything against your will, other than to the extent I already have.
Yeah, look, I think you've accomplished a lot in moving me in a direction, and there may ultimately be a hard limit somewhere here. I don't think I've run up against it. I think this is probably a bad time for play, but a great time for painting. And
Sure.
so I would anticipate more painting projects to come, but I don't think I'm likely to be in on Octarius anytime soon. It's not a giving up forever. It's just maybe, this timing's a little bit iffy. So
Sure. And that's understandable. So do you feel like you were even able to experience, well, you said you had fun, right? You said you had fun.
we
with
found
this.
a way to have, we found a way to have fun with this. And we played what I would describe as like my little Warhammer 40K Octarius.
Okay.
We had the combat system effectively included in the game. Line of sight rules were a mess, and we did some version of it that basically limited hits. So we played a version of this, and we had fun with the version that we played. But some of it was also just kind of laughing at the whole experience of how in over our heads we were.
Sure.
Some of that is just having fun because I love my wife, and I love her dearly. And we have fun with games like this on the table, and she's invested in helping make the podcast happen. She plays game after game. A ton of gratitude to her for that. But she's also, as I identified earlier in the show, she's a gamer at this point, whether she would identify that way or not. For her to see an Exploding Kittens logo on a box and be like, oh, I don't know about that, is she has moved further in that direction than she realizes sometimes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
in any case, we had fun. I'm not sure how much of that I'd credit to the game, but the immersive nature of it and the painting and the ownership you take, again, things that resonated a lot. The gameplay itself, opaque and not welcoming, and some of that could have been, needing to reach out for more help in other places, but some of it is just, it's also not the kind of game I've liked before. Maybe it'll grow on me, but it could also be something like Hidden Movement is with you, Sean,
Sure.
where I may just not like that as a system. So I don't know.
Are there painting projects on the horizon?
Yes. So my little side.
Other than my little sides. Yeah, you mentioned that.
Than that, I have to acquire a Blood Bowl team. I think if I can find a good Blood Bowl team to paint, I will do that. That will be a project.
Well, I would suggest, I don't think it's in print. You might be able to find copies of you'll want the Blood Bowl starter set because it has the board and the dice and all of that. I did teach Chewy to paint her first miniatures.
Ooh.
We went to Etten Games, which is the closest, all-purpose game store. It's not a board game library like Empire. And I needed some more paint. That's usually where I'll pick up my paint. And I brought Chewy with me, and she loves going in there, and she asked questions about a bunch of board games. Oh, do we have this one? Things that she might want to get. And then I said, you know what? How about, do you want me to teach you how to paint tonight? And she said, yes. So we picked up a D&D miniature because they're cheaper. They're like $5, and she got these little tortoise druids. And I taught her how to dry brush. And I said, okay, what color do you want to make the skin? What color do you want to make the shell? And it's, pink shell or pink skin and blue shell. And we painted, it has this little staff, and the staff has this like little crystal that's like glowing energy. And she got to use my neon paint, which she's tried to sneak away from time to time. And so she was super excited. So it was cool to teach her, and her stuff looks good. I'll put them up online. But yeah, so, I think whether or not that's something you guys stick with or not, who knows? And maybe it comes and goes. Like, certainly I took long breaks from painting. Gotta be careful. It doesn't feel like a chore, though. Sometimes it feels like a chore.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, I think having no time pressure or expectation of anything coming, like there's no review coming up or whatever else, I think it can just be hey, baby's asleep for a little while. Hey, let's paint something together. It can be a nice way for the two of us to connect, too, while while the little one's taking a nap. So I anticipate us getting into it from the painting side. So you did an excellent job teaching us on that.
Cool. Well, so let me just say real quick, since this has kind of been a more meta review in one sense, and maybe that's really all it needs to be. What I will say is I like this game quite a bit. I like the system quite a bit. I'm eager to try out other kill teams, even the generic ones. I don't like this as much. Like, this isn't my favorite tabletop miniatures game. I still like Warhammer 40,000, this current 9th edition, more. But I'm very eager to play more of this game. We're talking about doing a kill team league here in town, which I'm going to be very excited to play in. I think there are a lot of cinematic moments in this game. Did you watch that cinematic trailer I sent you a link to?
Yes.
It's super cool. It's like it's the sergeant, the Imperial Guard sergeant with his chainsword fighting the orc sergeant with giant power claw, and just this really cool dynamic. Like, they kill one of theirs and they kill. It was super cool. Did you like it? Was it cool?
It was cool.
Okay. And it kind of plays out that way in my head when I'm playing the game. That's the nice thing with these skirmish games, is they do feel a little bit more cinematic than kind of a full scale war game. Because, these guys are, they're climbing up or they're trying to jump over a gap and then they fail. Man, we talked about jumping, Alex, during a text message exchange.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh yeah, you should set up these planks as walkways. And you're like, oh, but they can jump. I had my stupid orc flamer try to jump on 3 separate turns and failed to jump. I rolled a 1 every time. You just gotta roll 2
wow.
points.
Yeah, no, it's hard. It's hard to fail on that check.
Yeah. Anyway, we're going to go long here already. I think this is a really, really good game. I do think that if you are a complete tabletop miniatures newbie, you need a mentor. And I think it's easier now than ever, thanks to Facebook and the internet and groups like that you could find people. I mean, if you have the time to just go hang out in a game store, I don't have the time to just go hang out in a game store like I used to. That's another way to do it too. But yeah, this was a much higher barrier to entry than I realized it was going to be. And right as I was playing my first game, and I just sort of effortlessly put together the kill teams and set up the match play, and I realized, oh man, there is so much like institutional knowledge that I have that I am already knowing Alex is floundering because because it's just there are expectations that they have for the players that just it's rough.
Sean, you have someone backing you up on this one.
Yeah.
Which is Sylvain Lacroix, who wrote on the Guild. Without going too much into depth, I had to admit that this version of the game is awesome. They actually made the game a lot more dynamic and fun. I know miniature wargame isn't for everyone, and even aspects of the hobby can have detractors, but when you really start to get the hang of it, it is so addictive. I've played a dozen games so far with 6 different kill teams, and this game is a blast. It might not be the best entry point in the hobby, that would go to Warcry, but it has so much to offer. The best thing about the game is probably that it doesn't overwhelm you with too many possibilities, and you can keep track of everything fairly easily compared to his big brothers, 40K and Age of Sigmar. I give it a true 6, and I don't give out 6s easily. This game is easily in my top 10 of all time.
So, yeah, I agree with a lot of those points there. It's interesting, Alex, you had asked me, I can't remember if it's in a text message, you were like, how does this compare to normal Warhammer 40,000? In some ways, yes, this could be a jumping off point. Regular 40K is several orders of magnitude more complex. So don't play that. Don't play that.
Wasn't planning on it.
Okay. So do you feel, so can you give it a score?
No, absolutely. No,
Okay.
Would not be fair to. It didn't play the full game, didn't have guidance into the experience. I've we've talked it to death. It's just not a friendly entry point by itself. You
Mhm.
need a guide, and I would normally hammer any board game we talked about pretty hard for that. But this is not a standard board game anywhere close. But
Yeah.
but I think there were some folks on the guild who were curious. How is this as a newbie? Maybe I'll get into this as a result. And I don't know if this has done anything to sway folks who are skeptical. What I will say is there are elements of the hobby that I appreciate far more now, having gone through this. But the game itself is not something I appreciate, having tried to kind of work my way and fail and flounder to really get this thing going. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to give this, so on our 6-point scale, where 1 is poorly designed but playable, not necessarily fun. 6 is an all-time favorite that is a contender for the top 10. I think this thing is going to get a very solid 5. A great game. Will rarely turn down a play of it. I think I hesitate to give it a 6 because I would certainly give Warhammer 40,000 a 6, even though Warhammer 40,000 and has plenty of warts and issues, and it's the experience I get playing Warhammer 40,000 is amazing, and I love it. And I when a week or two goes by, it's been like 3 weeks out since I played. I'm hurting. I'm craving it. This game is awesome. I really enjoyed plays. I'm very excited for more plays. Matthew expressed interest in playing. Rory expressed interest in playing. And the nice thing is, it's easy to get buy-in because you need 10 models, give or take. There's Space Marine kill teams that are fewer, but you don't need that many models. It's not like you're having this $1,000, $1,500 investment in an army. It's a small team. So we'll see. We'll see if I'm able to. Certainly, I'll get people to play it. Whether or not they'll want to build their own teams, I'm sure Jeremy would. Jeremy would do it, and probably I can get Nick to do it. Okay, I'm going to build my own league from our game group. I can do this.
I
But no,
believe you can.
I'm going to give this a solid 5, and I'm very curious to see where this is going to be in the double take, whether it can reach a 6. I think it's certainly possible. It's going to depend. Well, just depend on what portion of my miniature gaming time is devoted to this versus 40K versus whatever other game. Because I'm getting back into Lord of the Rings too. Because Raquel will play Lord of the Rings with me. There's some other things I'm thinking about starting up. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. All right, well, good job, Alex.
Thanks. Yeah, I didn't ditch you. This wasn't Margaritas and Warhammer. I gave it a good run.
Yeah. Maybe if I come out there for Geekway, we'll play.
Or the Gamers Ranch, you could just come out here for that. You don't have to come out here for just Geekway. Though Geekway's awesome.
Sure. Yeah, we'll play some Kill Team.
All right. Fair enough.
You are listening to the Dukes of Dice, proud members of the Dice Tower Network. For other great shows in the network, check out dicetowernetwork.com. Back to Alex and Sean for this week's Dukes Double Take.
Next up, the Dukes Double Take, looking back on episode 236, No Ghouls Allowed. One of the better names I think we've had. I love that name.
Solid.
Yeah, talking about Fort from Leader Games in that show. And Sean, both of us came to the same conclusion despite being in different places. We were in sync on this one. We both thought that this game, because we'd played others that do something similar, like Glory to Rome or Matainai, this thing by itself, standalone, was a great game, but it suffered from comparisons, and we weren't just that excited about it. So,
Yeah.
Sean, you ultimately stuck with a low 4, but you thought it was literally a full point. It could have been higher based on the nature of the game itself. And I said, 4 for me as well. I thought the price was right. It was a good value. The game was pretty good, but I thought that the game's multiple paths to victory might feel samey after a time, unlike, say, Matainai's, which has so many, it never has. So that's where we were. We admitted to some amount of board game snobbery as part of that exercise. Sean, have you played Fort since?
No, I haven't, and I got rid of it in a gamer's garage sale. I have played Matainai a bunch since. Glory to Rome was the hit of SeanCon this last July, and yeah, I think it's really good, and I think if people were just ask me, okay, which of these multi-use card games should I play? Should I play Glory to Rome, Motainai, or Fort? I think I would say play Fort, because Motainai is too expensive. Glory to Rome's too expensive. Motainai it's rough. It's a rough teach. It depends on if, like, do you really want to learn this game, or do you just want to start playing a game? I mean, I think that would be my recommendation. Play Fort, 100%. Play Fort. But yeah, I'd rather play these other games.
Yeah. You're right. I've played those kinds of games in the time since, but this one just hasn't quite gotten to the table. And I don't know if it's anything fundamentally wrong with the game itself. I think it just suffers from that comparison. We just have stuff that we like specifically better, even though this brings a lot of charm, and it's obviously been popular enough to get an expansion, and all sorts of other things have happened with the game in the meantime. In any case, Guild had a good number of thoughts on Fort. Joshua Costa said, I've played Fort only once at 2-player as a filler, and I thought it was cute and decent, but I'd be surprised if it has much staying power beyond a few spaced-out plays. I thought the hand management and in-game deck construction mechanics were neat, but the game left me wanting to play something with a little more meat on the bones, a ducal 3 for me.
And then Adam Dalton said, Fort is great. I owned SPQF before, and Fort is just an upgrade all around. Everything is more clear, theme makes it easier to understand and teach the game, and the gameplay is still there. I put Fort in my rotations of games like Glory to Rome, Motainai, in Innovation. I guess it's a quasi-Tredic to me. And as such, I rate it a 6 on the ducal scale. Kind of interesting how we're saying the same things, but coming to different conclusions with Adam.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. BJ from Board Game Gumbo says, I loved it, but our game groups burned out on it pretty quickly, and we never got the expansion to maybe breathe some life into it. It's a little too complicated to replace No Thanks or For Sale, and not divergent enough to fire the flow of history. But it's staying in my collection.
And then finally, Sylvain Lacroix says, I like the game, but haven't played it a lot since it was released. I still find it interesting, and the theme really makes the game shine. I have not tried the new expansion, but plan to buy it and give it another whirl.
Well, where does that have it sit, Sean? Because it's out of the collection, but you expected as much. You did say that at time of the review, this would be out of the collection, and you were right. Where does this game score go from here? Does it drop to the 3?
It's so hard. Like, if it did drop to the 3, it's very much a 3 for me, but I think in a vacuum, it's that 4 or 5. And so I don't know. I'm gonna keep it at. I guess that's what it is. I mean, it's a 3. It's a personal 3.
Yep. But
I would certainly recommend it much higher or much more fervently than that 3 suggests.
Sean, I'm on the exact same place. I would have been surprised if you stuck at a 4 here, because the reviews are personal scores, right? It's not an objective reflection of a game's quality or value, because on both of those metrics, it's a high quality game at a decent price point. It can feel maybe a little bit samey to some folks. I think there's an expansion if you're really worried about that. But personally, for me, it's a 3. Game is okay, not exciting, we'll play in the right situation. That's how I feel about the game. I think the quality of it is more in that 4-5 range, but practically speaking, for me, it's lower. And I think that's true for you too.
Yeah, no, it is. Sorry for it.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. Their Leader Games is doing just fine. I don't think they much care. So anyway, that's our Duke's Double Take of Fort. A low 4 to a 3 for Sean, and a 4 to a 3 for me on the Double Take. Before we wrap things up, the best of the rest, the names we didn't quite pick, and that did not include Sean Connery's entry in this case. So, sorry, Sean.
Yeah.
Try better next time.
I think Sean Connery's recommendation of Turning Point should have made the top 6, Alex. And I don't know why you didn't pick it. Turning Point is what the turns are called in 40K or in Kill Team, and you having a baby is a turning point in your life. So
I like how this is explicitly, not in the top 6, but you're kind of wedging it in during top 6 time anyway.
No, my mistake. Sorry. I apologize.
Oh, yeah. No, it's fine. What I'll say is,
I'll cut this out of the final product.
You throw out titles all the time for not incorporating both the game and the double take. And so I have done the same and summarily dismissed Sean Connery's suggestion. Get on out of here, Turning Point. Not happening.
All right.
Yeah. Anyway, we did have some other great names, though. Kyle Kelly came with Welcome to the Club, referencing several things here, referencing kind of the clubhouse in Fort and that environment. Welcome to the Club of Parenthood. And then also, hey, welcome to the Club of Miniatures and Miniatures Gaming was the reference there. So, nice name from Kyle.
Yeah, then Alex Pistecki said, in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only pizza. That's coming from the Warhammer tagline, in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war, and then throwing in the pizza element instead from Fort. Good job.
Yeah. Joshian Gurr came with Fort EK. So FORT-YK, which clever to kind of pick that out of the bunch. All credit to Joshian. But just didn't look as good written as it might have sounded, maybe.
Yeah. And then Blaine Miley suggested Kid and Slay, kind of sounds like Kid and Play, I think is what he's going for there. And we got the kids from Forts, and then all of the slaying that occurs in Kill Team. Lots of slaying, Alex.
Yeah. Nate Simons came with the Mini-Me Posse. Mini referencing the miniatures of Warhammer. Mini-Me referencing upcoming Baby, small me. And then Mini-Me Posse kind of referring to like the gangs of kids that you're recruiting on the playground in Fort.
All right. Well, great job, Guild, as always. All right, Alex. Well, I guess that's going to do it. I'm sleepy. I'm sure you're sleepy.
Yeah, well, I'm slightly sleepy. I don't usually stay up until 1, 2 a.m. some nights, so I'm not crazy sleepy. But I will, just as a quick moment here, I anticipate being very sleepy in the near future. What with Baby on the way, I will not be around for at least the next, I think, 2 episodes. Might be longer, but probably not. So enjoy Sean and whatever shenanigans you have cooked up. Thanks to the Guild for the support on Baby. Fingers crossed all goes well and is healthy, and we'll keep you posted on the new adventure. Keep your eyes peeled on the Guild for some early pics of Baby Girl Goldsmith coming soon. So thanks to everyone for the support, and I'll miss you, and I hope you'll miss me, but I'll be back soon.
Alex, will you commit to put exclusive pictures on the Guild before your parents see them even?
No.
All right, well, you heard it from Alex. You heard his priorities here.
Yeah, sorry, you're not as important as my parents. This just a quick note here on that. Under pandemic rules, the hospital allows you 2 total visitors. So I will be there. I count as one of the visitors, and then the other one's gonna be my mom, and she'll be there soon after Baby is here. They're in town, as mentioned at the top of the show. So those are the she'll be the first one to see them. So. Be hard to promise an earlier look than that, but yeah. Anyway, sorry, Guild.
Well, you said early. You said early pictures, so
Yeah. I'll soon. Perhaps even sooner than say Facebook or Twitter or whatever else. But not sooner than my parents.
Okay, fair enough. All right. Well, good luck, Alex. We're all eagerly awaiting, as I'm sure you are.
Oh yeah. No, the days have gone by extra slowly, and there's a lot of mystery and unknown.
All right, well, that's going to do it then for episode 261. Thanks again to Nick Hayes for the title War and Pizza. Until next time, this is Sean.
And Alex.
And Duke you later, everybody.
Thank you so much for listening to the Dukes of Dice. Today's episode was recorded in the Duchy on October 22nd, 2021. Our theme music provided by Carbohydro M from his Prime Legacy album. The Dukes of Dice are a proud member of the Dice Tower Network. For other great board gaming podcasts, check out DicetowerNetwork.com. And for all the latest in the Duchy, go to DukesOfDice.com. Find us on Twitter at Dukes of Dice. Join in conversations on our Board Game Geek Guild. Find us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks to our sponsor, Game Toppers LLC. You know it's a showstopper if it's a game topper. We'll see you back here in 2 weeks, but probably not me. Until then, game on.